Listen to the vibes.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Listen to the Vibes. And very happy to welcome Kevin Burk here. He is the headmaster at the Real Astrology Academy and an author. And we're going to get to know him today. So, Kevin, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, I am, as you said, the headmaster of the Real Astrology Academy. I'm also the creator of the Human Game, which is a philosophy based on the idea that the universe is made up of stories. And I've created the Human Game Experience, which is an astrology-based reality role-playing game that can give you creative control over the story of your life.
Wow. Yeah, I've read a little bit about it, but I wanted to get to know it a little bit more. So, how do
Sure.
we play this game?
Well, I have to dive right in how to play the human game. I do have it's an online program that sort of guides you through it because um, you need some tutorials to kind of understand how story works and be able to figure out how to look at your life in different ways. Um, the main thing that the first entry point, I suppose, is recognizing that uh, everything is story. And what you see as reality, what you experience as your story, as a story of your life, is the composite story. So it's like when you see an image on your monitor or your TV screen, it's a composite image. It's made up of three different channels. There's the red channel, the green channel, and the blue channel. Stories are made up of three different composite levels of story. There's the plot level story, the character level story, and the theme level story. And these are like the red, green, and blue channels, except they are vastly different sometimes than the composite story. So the plot level story is the external sequence of events. It's what happened. It's what most of us think of as reality. We focus on how things look. We focus on the sequence of events. We think that's what the composite story is. Now, the thing about plot level story is that you don't actually have any creative control over the external events. You didn't create the outside world. You can't, try as you might, you can't control everything. And, frankly, most of the time you can't control anything. So the good news is that that's not really the most important part of the story. Um, the character level story is your internal subjective experience of the event. So the plot level story is what happened, character level story is what happened to me and how I feel about it. So you experience reality as if it's divided into sort of inside and outside. So basically, what you really know subjectively as real, everything that lives inside you, is your sense of me and how you feel. And that's it. That's the only thing you have direct experience of. And all you care about is how you feel.
Hmm.
We engage with the outside world because we think somehow engaging with the outside world, engaging with the plot level story is going to create internal feelings in the character level story. But it doesn't quite work the way that we think that it does. But, we care about happiness. Happiness is, the first module, if you will, of the human game experience is the quest for happiness, because frankly, everybody's looking for their happily ever after. So let's start there. But happiness is a feeling. So it's part of the character level story. It's not a part of the plot level story. It doesn't live outside of you. And then we've got the theme level story. The theme level story is archetypal, spiritual, metaphysical. epic. It is bigger than you as an individual. It's, there's a much bigger level of truth, a much bigger universe. All that stuff exists at the theme level story. So the title of the theme level story is the Da Vinci Code, because everything in the theme level story is symbolic. It all, but that's where you can find meaning. It's we look for meaning, we look for answers to the ultimate questions of life, the universe, and everything. That's down at the theme level story. But you need to be able to connect that. You can't take a theme level spiritual truth and apply it directly to your plot level Monday morning staff meeting. You can't, that skips a step. It's got to go through the character level story. So to begin to play the human game, you start to recognize, okay, let me realize how my story works and start to separate out, well, this is just the plot level story, and here's my character level story, because you got a lot of creative control in terms of the character level story. You can't control the external events, but you can influence and decide how you feel about them. So there's always going to be obstacles. Obstacles are part of the plot level story. An obstacle is anything that stands between you and an external goal. But an obstacle doesn't have to be a problem. A problem is anything that messes with your happiness. So what you have the ability to do when you play with the character level story is take a problem and turn it back into an obstacle. So that, okay, whether or not I achieve this goal doesn't actually affect my happiness. So, yeah, I still want to address that goal. Yeah, this is still something I would like to change. I'd like to accomplish this thing in the outside world. I don't have to put up with, the magical thinking of, oh, everything in the world is perfect. No, it's not. There are things you want. And just because getting what you want doesn't automatically make you happy, getting what you want doesn't prevent you from being happy. It just, it has nothing to do with whether or not you're happy. So really, the first really profound tool of the human game is, let me separate these plot level goals from what I need to be happy. Let me learn how to build a foundation of happiness, manage my needs, lower the stakes, so that, if I can accomplish a plot level goal and get something that I want, great. Bonus. Gonna be lovely, wonderful things that I get from that. But if I don't achieve that goal, no harm, no foul. It doesn't affect my happiness. It's just, oh, well, didn't do that. Let me pick another goal. Let me try something else. And that just makes life so much easier. It just makes it so much less stressful when you realize that it doesn't, when you lower the stakes, you can find the game in life. And when you lower the stakes, life can be fun, because games are supposed to be fun.
Right. But knowing my luck, I'd be an NPC. So,
Well, but here's the thing: you in fact are the only actual character in your story. Everybody else is technically a non-player character. Other people claim that they exist, but you've only got their word for it. You don't. All you know for certain is you. And this is part of the story of the human game, is how do you get creative control over the story of your life? How do you recognize how your story works and how to make your story better? Because the only law of the human game is the best story wins. And you experience the story of your life as the protagonist. Everything in your life is happening to you. But you also are in the audience. of the story of your life. You're also enjoying watching it. And that shift in perspective is important. I mean, it's the difference between, sitting in a movie theater watching a screening of Halloween and actually being Jamie Lee Curtis. And we're both. Uh, and in addition to that, you're also the author of the story of your life. You do make choices. You did choose this story to a large degree. Again, you didn't choose necessarily the plot level conditions because you don't have control over that. But all of the challenges in your life, I mean, this is where people often kind of go, whoa, 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 whoa. If I was actually the author of the story of my life would not suck as hard as it does. It would not be, why would I choose this much suffering and struggle? And so here's the thing. As I said, the only law of the human game is the best story wins. All that matters is that your story is good. And a good story needs to entertain the audience.
Yes.
It doesn't necessarily have to be fun for the character. So, as challenging as your life may be up to this point, it's been a good story. And when you learn how to take creative control over your story, it's like, okay, you can make your story better. There's no reason the story can't be fun for you as the character. You just have to make it a better story. And so you start looking at, for example, some of the rules of story. One of the rules of story is the rule of compensation. And the rule of compensation states that every gift has a price and every price has a gift. So every time you have something taken away from you, every time you have been limited, every time you have gone through a challenging situation, you're paying a price. And you are entitled to claim a gift of equal or greater value. Now, it's a gift, it's not a prize. It doesn't just automatically come to you. Sometimes you have to, storm up to the front desk and demand to see the manager and claim your gift. And it's also a gift, which means might not be something you would have chosen for yourself. It's something you sort of had to, okay, well, maybe, thank you so much. I'm going to figure out what I can do with this. But there's always value. And sometimes it's a matter of, okay, what, instead of focusing what I can't do, you focus on, okay, what can I do? So one of the examples that I give for most of my life, I have in my birth chart, I have some patterns and configurations that have created, shall we say, ongoing issues with authority. And for most of my life, those issues with authority created lots and lots and lots of problems in one job after another. But when I finally realized that the same qualities, the price that I pay that makes me a lousy employee, makes me a great consultant. When I started freelancing, it changed everything, because now my boss is my client. They're my client, not my father. I'm sorry, did I say father? I meant to say father. So it changes the dynamic and it's the exact same qualities. And so I talk about this sort of, it's like, okay, so you look at how, gee, I can't do this and I've got all of these things. Well, this is just, you're basically kind of halfway through your origin story. You just haven't figured out how what you think is your problem is actually your superpower. And let's advance to the training montage where you figure out what you can actually do with this thing that you haven't understood, that you've grabbed the wrong end of the stick of. And this is a fun thing to be able to do, and this applies. You can apply this with pretty much any story, but this is one of the things that you can do with the human game, is discover, oh, this is actually how that works for me. Nothing of value is ever taken away from you. Nothing is ever preventing you from being happy. Sometimes you just have to realize, oh, no, that's, no, I don't get to fit in. I'm not a square peg. I'm not a round peg. I can't fit in either a square or a round hole. I need to go find the uniquely shaped hole that fits me, because there is one, and I don't need to be like everybody else.
Right.
This is what makes me special. Let me make use of this.
Well, I want to know what was the road to the fruition of this game. But before we get to that, what
Mhm.
is the Real Astrology Academy?
I identified for many, many years as an astrologer.
Mhm.
I thought for a long time that I was an astrologer. My pronouns were Scorpio, Cancer, Gemini. I've written a bunch of astrology books. I have counseled in astrology for more than 20 years. And the Real Astrology Academy is the online website where I have been teaching astrology. I launched the Real Astrology Academy in, I want to say, 2012. So it's been 12 years so far that I've been offering online astrology classes and training programs. And I have never been satisfied with astrology.
Mhm.
Astrology has always made promises to me about what it could do, and it never quite lived up to those promises. And so I spent, you know, started teaching astrology in 2000. So I've spent the last 2 decades uh, basically trying to get astrology to do what it's supposed to do. Because one of the things is that there are people that have studied astrology for 30 years and they can't interpret a birth chart. Nothing takes 30 years to learn. There's something missing from how it's being taught, from how it's being used. There's some structure, some system, some fundamental understanding that was missing, and that's kind of what I set out to figure out. And so I developed many different iterations of courses to teach and train people to work with astrology. And over the years, I discovered a a really deep, profound respect and kinship for the captain of the Titanic, because on multiple occasions I am 2, 3 weeks into teaching a class, and then I realize this doesn't actually do what I thought it did. That is definitely an iceberg. And we are definitely gonna be hitting that. So okay. And so I would frequently, I'd test out an idea, have a great idea, teach it a couple of times, realize, oh yeah, this is where this train doesn't go where I think it's gonna go. And then I'd rip everything apart and try again. So 3 years ago, I was having another one of those Titanic related experiences. I was teaching a program where I was this was a program that was supposed to be about natal chart synthesis, because at the time I still thought what we're looking for is how can you tie everything together? There's so much information in astrology, there's so much information in the birth chart. And for decades, I thought the objective is somehow we tie it all together in a bow. We synthesize it so it all works together, and then all of a sudden it will reveal all of the answers. And midway through this program, which wasn't going the way I thought it was going to go, I started working with bits of astrology in a different way that was so exciting. Just looking at, ultimately kind of looking at some of these stories, looking at how to actually apply things. And it was revelatory, because the approach that I had been taking, the approach that everybody thinks modern astrology is all about the personality. And that's how astrology is popularly used. And it can be a system of personality typing, and there's a lot of value to that. But that's not what astrology is. And basically, if you approach astrology that way, you're sitting down with an astrologer and you're kind of having your portrait painted. And that's a nice experience. It's lovely having, sit in front of somebody for 60, 90 minutes, have them tell you how pretty you are. And when you're done, you've got a portrait. And maybe it reveals something a little interesting about yourself. And that's great. But then it's a portrait. You hang it up on the wall. It doesn't do anything. You can't actually use it. And that's what I was always looking for. And so I started coming up, about 3 years ago is when I started coming up with what quickly became the human game. And I'm looking at this, at how to look at the chart dynamically. And I'm starting to put together, because I was never really active playing Dungeons and Dragons, but I was in grade school when it first came out, and I've loved the idea of it. And so I'm putting together all of these rules and structures and sort of the Dungeon Master's Guide kind of thing that I'm sharing with my students, because they were on board with this. But it's like, oh, they're fascinated, but they couldn't do anything with it. It was way too complicated. But this is where the human game started to come together, because I'm like, oh, this is exciting. This is something that I can use, and it is the exact opposite of what I've been trying to do for 20 years, because this was not about, let's try to combine as many different components of astrology. Let's combine the planet and the sign and the element and the modality and the house and try to wrap all of that together. This was no. Let's throw all of that away. Let's take the smallest, most isolated, simple, little, tiny thing and look at what that does. Let's look at not even the signs. Let's look at the modality of the sign, cardinal, fixed, or mutable. And what does that tell you about something. And these are three different strategies that you may apply to different goals, and they're hardwired into your chart. Different types of goals for you, you're going to approach with one of these different approaches. And just, oh my God, this was so useful. This was so done. It's like this. It's like, oh my God, that is exactly how I approach money. I have this brilliant practical understanding that I'm always looking at money as an archery target. So I'm always thinking I just need one giant sum of money to fix everything. And that's what I'm setting as a target. And that's, there's challenges with that. It's not a bad strategy, but it's got some built-in obstacles. It's like, oh, let me just move the target closer. Let me understand that's what I'm doing. And so I started building out the human game. I started exploring what this was, because like, this is how I want to work with people. This is useful. This can really help people. And I didn't understand what it was. I was calling it a coaching model, but it wasn't quite a coaching model. It's like, is it a floor wax? Is it a dessert topping? I wasn't sure what it was. And then it's like a year and a half of working on this and putting it out there in various ways, and work until I finally realized, it's a philosophy. It's a way of looking at the universe. And I've never been an astrologer. I'm a philosopher. Because I don't care about astrology for its own sake. I've never cared about astrology for its own sake. I care about astrology because it promised answers to, questions of life, the universe, and everything.
Right.
And so my approach to astrology has always been from the outside of it. It's always been critical thinking. It's always been, how does this work? I'm not interested in just a bunch of, oh, this means this and this means that. Why? What's the internal consistency? What are the rules? What's the structure of this? How do we leverage it? And that's because I've been approaching it as a philosopher. So from that, realizing, it's all about story. I don't teach astrology. I teach how to tell better astrology stories. I teach how you can take astrology, which is symbolic. So astrology is theme level story, but how you can find meaning working with the symbols in astrology, and how you can bring those into the character level story and take a couple of tiny little bits of astrology, just some very specific things from your birth chart, and use those to really help you to build a foundation of happiness, to really understand how you can manage your safety needs and how you manage your validation needs and what language you speak for those, and really how to use little bits of astrology practically to manage your happiness by managing your safety and validation needs. And then there's so much more that can be done with this that I'm building out, because it's like, oh my God, it's like, predictive astrology. Yeah, it's not, oh, this is happening to me and I got to put up with it. It's more, what would I like to do over the next 6 months? What are my options? Oh, well, I've got these things happening over the next 6 months, so I'll take advantage of those stories, and I will use these astrological events as a framework to build the story that I'm going to navigate my way through over the next couple of months, and take advantage of that. And so it's like, ooh, that's empowering. I can get behind that. I like that. I'm not there yet. That's getting to that point. There's a lot more work that has to be done to make that practical. But I said, that's where this can go. Mm-hmm. That's what you could do with astrology, combining it with the human game. So it's still a part of the Real Astrology Academy, because astrology is still a part of it. And I still want to be able to provide astrological tools for people that want to primarily use astrology, but would like to learn how to tell better astrology stories, how to get a better experience with the client by understanding you got to connect it to their life. You got to be able to tell the story for that last mile delivery. But it's also, I'm turning this into an actual game. I'm in the process of going back and sort of updating the human game experience. I'm hoping to launch version 2.0 sometime late April, early May of this year. And that's actually going to have, levels and points, because basically it's like, okay, you're going through this. Here's how you level up your character. Here's where you find your character attributes. You go through this, you do XYZ, then you will reach level 1 as a player. And as level 1 as a player, you will be able to do this. But you'll actually be able to do that. It's not a mythical, oh, you can do these things and you can fight that. No, it's like, no, it's literally, you'll have these skills. You can apply these skills. And level 2, you'll be able to apply these skills. So I'll have points. I mean, I'll create, I'll gamify the whole thing to make it even more, oh yeah, let me play it. But frankly, once you find your way in, once you actually experience some of the human game for yourself, no one that has ever done that has yet stopped playing. I've been playing this nonstop for like the last 3 years, and I have never had more fun in my life.
Wow.
Because it's just it's how I engage with reality. And I got options, and I can find the fun in almost anything. And it just keeps on expanding. So I hope somewhere in there that answered the question you asked.
Somewhere in there. What is your website?
The best website to explore is playthehumangame.com.
And do you have social media?
I am on social media. I have a couple of Facebook pages. I don't do a lot actively with social media. The best way to connect with me is through the website. At playthehumangame.com, you can watch some videos to learn about the human game. You can learn about the human game experience. You can register for the human game experience, and you can register for the free human game introduction series of videos, which is, I guess, my version of a podcast. But it's not regular enough. I've got about 12 of these, but as I come up with new ideas or new stories or new things I want to explore about the human game, I ultimately throw them into a video, and because that's how I sketch this stuff out. So there's lots of different topics and just a way of seeing what you can do with it, and that's free. And eventually those videos make it to my YouTube channel, but frankly, most of them aren't there yet. I'm focused on getting stuff up on my own site primarily. So that's where I recommend people reach out. And I'm not on Twitter or X or whatever that is. So,
and you have a YouTube channel?
I do have a YouTube channel. And now you're going to ask me what the URL is, and I don't. It's the Real Astrology Academy.
Kevin, thank you so much for being on the show.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
I also want to thank all you folks out there. If you are new to the channel, I hope you'll come back. Hit that subscribe button for my regulars. You guys are awesome because you make it possible for me to do this. Until the next one, everyone, please take care. Be kind to one another. God bless and peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Listen to the Vibes. You can catch us on Buzzsprout or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, and on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook at The Vibes Broadcast Network